Hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
I was just editing, I had no idea you snuck into here. Try it on that. Yeah, I've got two people, one on that screen, one on that screen.
I really live like
2 minutes away. Hi.
It's been a real interesting process seeing the film come together, because there's a lot of parts of it that you think worked a lot better than it was in your head, and then there are other parts where you're not so sure. But that being said, really pleased with the overall quality of what we've got in terms of sort of a visual style. And it's sort of interesting, particularly given how rushed a lot of the shooting was and how over time certain scenes were on the day due to logistics and things like that, where things were running a bit slower, is actually in the time frame that we had, we've pulled off what seems to be a really nice looking film. So it's sort of been really interesting to sort of think you do a whole day's worth of shoot and you come home and you feel awful and stressed out because you just think that it didn't work, and then you turn on the computer and start having a look through the footage and just go, wow, we've got some really cool stuff here. So it's kind of it's been an interesting the difference between how you feel on set and then what you've actually captured on camera and reviewed down the track. And I suppose that's been really cool because it was a really stressful shoot, but in the end we've pretty much got everything we need, and everything's looking really good. So I guess that's been a really surprising aspect of the production. Okay, so for example with colour correction, the way I like to do it is basically to make the image a lot more interesting and to kind of make it look not necessarily natural, because as you can see this is just the raw footage, but you want to kind of give it some texture and some depth and things like that. Particularly for me, I quite like to sort of bring down the saturation, which kind of makes it look a lot flatter, but in saying that it gives it a really interesting kind of film look as well. As you can see, you really pull it out, you eventually make it black and white. So if you can sort of find somewhere between raw and balance, for example, it already starts to look a little bit more interesting. And then with changing, say, your whites and your blacks, you can actually start giving it a film look already. So for example, take a little bit of that, and without really doing too much, we've already made it look like it's on a cinema screen. And then sometimes I like to add just a little bit of red just to compensate for that saturation that's come out. And so you can see that obviously that's a way too much red, but you give it just a little bit and all of a sudden it doesn't look, even though we've changed the colour a fair bit, it still looks a little bit natural to the eye. So you can already see, for me anyway, that image is far more interesting than this image. So there you go, there's the difference. You come over here and have a look at this monitor, you can see we can actually balance all the different parts of the film. So we've got exposure, red, green, the history of the colour where you've changed. You see how we took out so much light here and sort of brought it right down. And then you've also got things like flesh tone, which we'll get into later, where we can actually change the colour of people's skin and actually make it look a lot more natural than it does when it's just raw. So that's a little bit about colour correcting and why we do it and how we do it.